Joining us now is Congressman Lloyd Doggett. He serves on the Budget, Ways and Means Committee and the Joint Committee on Taxation. Congressman, I know that there have been 4 deaths in Travis County in your district. What are your thoughts today as we see this devastation continue? How are search and rescue efforts doing, and how are folks in your community doing?
Well, it's just a really painful, heartbreaking catastrophe. 2 of the little girls that are missing in Kerr County, about 100 miles from Austin, are from the elementary school that members of my family have attended. And here in Travis County, the same weather system moved and caused some devastation here. As you said, 4 dead, 11 to 13 missing. I think every effort is being made, and I certainly salute all the emergency crews and law enforcement that are out there in our county and in Kerr County doing all they can to check for any other survivors and to help those who have survived get by, because in many places in my county, roads are out, access is limited, in some cases only by boat.
Are there still places where comms are down, like you just said, you can't access, where people may actually be okay and we just haven't been able to get to them yet? Or have search and rescue teams pretty much made contact with most of the area?
I believe that there's still some search and rescue going on. In our county, there have been about 50 rescues that have occurred already. Fortunately, it's not raining at the moment, but we may have rain again in the next 24 hours. So their work is cut out for them, and all of us appreciative of the efforts they've made, of the support within the communities, but really feeling the pain of the loss of children, of others who were in this area enjoying a weekend or a summer camp and now face the worst pain of their lives.
It's just really, really heartbreaking. I'm wondering, as you look at this, the last time this area had this kind of flooding was back in the 80s, but it does seem these severe weather events are happening more and more often. What action do we need to take? What action should governments take? How do you keep people safe?
Well, as you mentioned, this is not entirely unusual in the Hill Country. In fact, they've called themselves kind of a flood alley over in the Kerr County area that's so beautiful and attracts people from all over Texas. I think there are a couple of things. First, we have to look at the impact of the DOGE Trump cuts on the National Weather Service. The San Angelo and the Austin San Antonio offices have about twice as many vacancies now as when Trump came into office. Some of the most experienced people that are there for weather alerts, and clearly there was not enough of an alert in Kerr County. And we need to investigate and determine whether these shortages at the National Weather Service, which some people are urging be privatized and changed tremendously, whether that happens. I've been asking about the impact of these cutbacks on our weather service in this area for about 6 weeks, repeated requests, and cannot get an answer out of the Trump administration. And the second, maybe even more far-reaching effect is the fact that the climate crisis is real. And I believe the estimate is that for every 1 degree that the weather temperature goes up in Fahrenheit, you have about a 4% increase in the moisture content. And so we have weather intensification. So whether it is recognizing those dangers of climate crisis or adequately staffing NOAA and the National Weather Service, my concern is that not other communities, maybe it's not a flood, maybe it's a hurricane, maybe it is a tornado, that whatever the nature of the natural disaster, that we are prepared to inform and alert people so that they do not face the calamity that we've had here in Texas.
Congressman, I want to follow up with something you just said. Do you believe there's a correlation between the cuts to these services and insufficient warnings to folks in Hill Country before these floods hit?
I think it's a matter of investigating thoroughly to see. I know there are a number of important vacant positions, and that I and others have been asking for some time how this affects our preparedness here and ability to give alerts. I also know that on a bipartisan basis, every living former director of the National Weather Service has expressed concerns about this very thing.
We need to remember that Donald Trump is both evil and incompetent. And that's why both his big, beautiful bill, his bill from hell, but also his response to the tragedies, the floods down in Texas, they are connected. Like, we get that, right? They are connected. It's, yes, that he's evil, and his ideology is about enriching the millionaire and billionaire class, which means all of his cuts have been designed to enrich the rich and also exemplify cruelty. So, cutting disaster relief to build his alligator Alcatraz camps, his concentrations, whatever, right? That's obviously bad ideological policy, but it's like he even beyond that, he's too stupid, and he picked stupid people that he can't even be competent. There have been Republican presidents that have been evil and yet could still day-to-day have the government function, right? Evil men with evil plans whose goal was to harm the innocent. The Republican presidents, still competent at their job. Trump is neither, and it gets even worse.
Susan, you've heard our two friends there both agreeing. It seems like a lot of political analysts on both sides of the aisle agree that this is going to damage Republicans, or at least become something they have to overcome. So why do this? Is the fear of going against the president just so much that Republicans overrode their own self-protectionist tendencies to get on board because they thought that would be worse? And do you think that was the correct calculation?
Well, they definitely were worried about the president's retribution. We've seen it in real time, as a matter of fact, when we hear from Republican members. But I think we don't know how this is going to play out. I would tend to agree with the Secretary and Matthew, most certainly. However, Trump is a wild card. I wouldn't be surprised, for example, to see him spend the next 18 months as a campaign on the campaign trail. That's what he loves to do. He doesn't like to legislate. He's happy to get this done and past him. So does he focus on his own personal wealth? Perhaps. Or does he focus on building up a kind of legacy, if you will? And that means he takes this show on the road, because to date, he has been a horrible salesman on this big, beautiful bill, so-called big, beautiful bill. So we shall see. And I think, just one thing on the Elon Musk thing, I don't think he's building a new party as much as he's really creating a super PAC. I don't know that he knows the difference between the two. So it seems like that's what he is really all about, is trying to kind of scare people in a Trump-like fashion. But instead of threatening the Republican Party, he's threatening dollars.
And Susan, I also want to ask you, there's a portion of this bill that's gone a bit more under the radar, and that's this provision that blocks reproductive health care clinics like Planned Parenthood from receiving Medicaid funds, even for non-abortion services. These are things like cancer screenings, STI testing. Elaine Godfrey of The Atlantic called it, quote, the biggest anti-abortion victory since Dobbs. This bill is so huge and sweeping. How long do you think it's going to take for everyone to process everything that goes into it?
It's going to take a long time on some things. Like, we know there's going to be a start date for the Medicare cuts in the future, in 2-3 years. But what this provision does is affect health care immediately for women who go to clinics, not just for abortion care, but to have screenings for their overall health care, for pregnancy care. And that is something we're going to see when we see those closures in combination with what hospitals are going to be doing, especially in rural America. Those stories are going to be coming front and center very, very quickly.
And before we go, Matthew and Juliana, I know both of you live in Texas. I want to give you a moment to comment on this devastating flooding we've been covering. Are all your friends and family okay? It's so heartbreaking to watch. What do we think are the next steps? Matthew, if you want to go first.
Sure. Yeah, I live about an hour from here, and by myself, we got 15 inches of rain in 3 days. So there was some property damage at my house, but nothing compared to the tragedy. And my heart goes out to the folks over there, their families, the ones that don't even know yet if their children survived in this or other adults have survived in this. It's unbelievably tragic. And all I see right now is everybody pointing fingers at each other. The federal government's pointing fingers, the state government's pointing fingers, the local government's pointing fingers. But in the end, tragic situation, but understanding it's a place where government, this is why government needs to exist.
Mr. Secretary?
Yeah, just also, very tragic, and my heart goes out to the families affected. I think everybody is saying a prayer that those girls that are still missing are found. And Matthew is right. There's a lot of finger pointing right now, but we know fundamentally the state, the federal government, and some local communities have to spend money on infrastructure. Just about a month ago in San Antonio, in a state highway, in a highway that's maintained by the state, we had 13 deaths, 11 of them near that highway. And what it points to me is that there has to be a serious effort for an early warning system and also for spending on infrastructure to make sure that the water is not able to rise this quickly. That is an expensive thing to do, but it's not a hard thing to do. And instead of spending billions of dollars on a border wall that's useless, I think that the state of Texas and the federal government should be spending on things like this to save lives, because this has happened before. It happened in 1987 in the San Antonio area. It's also happened before. They need to fix it.
3:30 in the morning on the House floor before it passed, calling it a travesty. What, if anything, can be done at this point? It's already passed, to try to minimize some of the effects it's going to have, particularly on things like health care and food assistance.
I thought there was something symbolically appropriate about him signing it on Independence Day at a picnic, because we haven't seen much independence from any of our Republican colleagues. They seem to feel their principal responsibility is to click their heels and salute the president. So the only way we get the change that we need is to see some changes in the composition of the Congress. There are all these people out there asking, what can I do? Well, what you can do is help us get some new members of Congress who view their responsibilities to their constituents and not to Trump. The damage that will be caused here is 17 million Americans lose their health coverage. The damage that we will all feel as energy prices go up by 16 or 17%, the number of Americans that go hungry when our food banks are overwhelmed by the cutbacks, and the fact that all this happens against a backdrop of a national debt increasing by trillions of dollars from the same people that once said they were for a constitutional amendment for a balanced budget, added trillions. So much so that come October 1, there will be a cutback in the rates that are paid physicians, healthcare providers, instead of an increase to account for inflation, because they've increased the debt so much.
Again, you can't disconnect them. You can't disconnect the incompetent cruelty of his budget bill from the floods in Texas. One, because again, Trump's approach, going all the way back to the early days with Doge, with the first days of this presidency, into the recent budget decision, it's all designed to strip away the programs that the working class, the 99%, depend on, so that every last cent can be given to, one, tax cuts for the rich, and two, programs that perpetuate a unjust hierarchy. So, no more disaster relief, but lots of money for his Gestapo, right? No money for healthcare, but lots of money for billionaires. This is Trump's America laid bare, and it's at the cost of human life.